Members of the mobile anti-disturbance squadron of the Colombian National Police repressed dozens of citizens who were demonstrating south of Bogotá in rejection of the increase in the price of the Transmilenio transportation system. United States President Joe Biden called out on former head of state Donald Trump as the singular responsible in provoking the mayhem of January 6 last year, when the outgoing Republican leader's supporters stormed Congress. Russian troops have arrived in Kazakhstan as part of a peacekeeping mission by Collective Security Treaty Organization in response to the Central Asian nation's president's request of aid. From the headquarters of Telesur English in Havana, Cuba, this is From the South. I'm your anchor, Gladys Quesada, and these are the news. Members of the mobile anti-disturbance squadron of the Colombian National Police repressed dozens of citizens who were demonstrating south of Bogotá in rejection of the increase of the price of the Transmilenio transportation system. The non-governmental organization Asamblea Nacional Popular 2021 denounced the violent way in which police officers treated the residents. The NGO also held Bogotá's major responsible for the violence and the police's excessive use of force against the protesters. The mobile anti-disturbance squadron agents arrived at the demonstration with 2 tanks and began throwing stun grenades and firing tear gas in a residential area, injuring several families in the process. Last December, Transmilenio officials stated that the cost to ride in the transportation system will go up on an average of 150 pesos. Now we move on. In Venezuela, the president of the National Assembly, Jorge Rodriguez, denounced the systematic robbery of the Venezuelan people by extremist sectors of the opposition led by Juan Guaidó. As part of the election and installation of the new boards of directors of the National Assembly this Wednesday, Rodriguez ordered the special commission led by lawmaker José Brito to investigate in depth the illegal seizure of Venezuelan assets with the support of the U.S. sanctions carried out in the past few days. Rodriguez also pointed out that around $382 million were stolen between 2020 and 2021 by Guaidó and his supporters. Allegedly, several countries donated around $800 million in humanitarian aid to these sectors, and yet the Venezuelan government has not had access to a single cent. The president of the Venezuelan parliament stressed that prior to the election of the current National Assembly, far-right lawmakers used parliament as a space to plot against national interests.
Because of brutal theft, because of calls for a military invasion of Venezuela, because of alliances with international criminal sectors, the alliances with Colombian drug trafficking, with Colombian paramilitaries, the signing of contracts with the United States, Canadian and Colombian mercenaries to promote an armed invasion of our coasts. All moves that can be considered part of a terrible nightmare were instigated by those who from this same space attempted to cause destruction.
The head of the parliament also ordered the special commission in charge of investigating the crimes committed by the past opposition leadership of the National Assembly to incorporate the crimes of theft assets belonging to the Venezuelan people.
Today, before the people of Venezuela, I ordered this special commission, coordinated by lawmaker José Brito, to include, within 7 days' time, the crimes that were committed 2 days ago and to which the perpetrators themselves confessed. Because if one meets with other accomplices to the theft and says, 20 million for you, 8 million for you, 300 million for you, they are committing the crime of theft and above all, and even more serious itself, theft from the people of Venezuela. Enough is enough. They must face justice.
Rodriguez also conditioned the return to talks with the opposition on the return of the state assets stolen by the country.
You want dialogue? Stop stealing money that does not belong to you and give back to the people of Venezuela the money that you stole, the assets that you are stealing, the gold held in England. Citgo, if you want talks, admit that you made a serious mistake and committed crimes against the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela. There is no dialogue with hypocrisy.
And lawmaker for the United Socialist Party of Venezuela, Diosdado Cabello, underlined the efforts of the National Assembly over the past year, since taking over from the corrupt former opposition-led parliament.
I congratulate you all for the extraordinary work you have been doing over the past year. We emerged from the disaster, from the most evil betrayal of the homeland. From 5 years of darkness and evil at the National Assembly, the election came in which we were elected. We, men and women, you were all elected and the stability commenced.
And Argentina delivered a clear challenge to the International Monetary Fund, outlining its hopes for a new financing program and revealing that it believes the multilateral lenders' targets will threaten the country's economic recovery. At an event attended by cabinet officials, provincial governors, and business leaders, President Alberto Fernandez called on the international community to support his government's bid to reach a new financing agreement with the fund. Argentina is seeking a new extended fund facility program with the IMF to restructure its existing $44 billion debt, delivered as part of the lender's record $57 billion credit line agreed in 2018 with the government of former President Mauricio Macri. The Argentinian head of state stated that the government has so far been unable to settle differences with the IMF on the size of the country's fiscal deficit in the years to come. Argentina continues to reclaim its legitimate rights over the Malvinas, South Georgia, and the South Sandwich Islands, illegally occupied by the United Kingdom. On another anniversary of their occupation, and in the lead up to the 40th anniversary of what is known in the United Kingdom as the Falklands War, the Fernandez administration launched the Malvinas 40 Years Agenda. Our correspondent, Carolina Silvestre, has the story.
To recover sovereignty over the Malvinas, South Georgia, and the South Sandwich Islands and surrounding maritime territories was announced by Foreign Minister Santiago Cafiero.
Different Argentine governments, with more or less intensity, with more emphasis, but the territory was always reclaimed. This demonstrates, above all, as international law supports, that Argentina, which then ended up enshrining it in the Constitution, in the constitutional reform of 1994, that this is inalienable, that it is an Argentine right, and that we must continue reclaiming our sovereignty over the Malvinas Islands.
De que es imprescriptible, de que es un derecho argentino y que tenemos que seguir reclamando la soberanía de las Islas Malvinas.
During the activity, the slogan, "The Malvinas Unite Us," was launched, and an image was presented as an element of message supporting this national cause.
That is why, when the President ordered the creation of the Malvinas National Council, the different political forces in the country joined and are participating and are part of the Malvinas 40 Years Agenda. All political parties are there. And certainly there are debates, naturally, but the Malvinas unite us. The Malvinas first and foremost. That is where we have been building this agenda and we have been building this path.
In addition, the authorities launched an online platform with documents and audiovisual information on the Malvinas issue, which allows citizens to submit their proposals.
There are more than 140 actions that will be carried out throughout the year, and this process is still open to suggestions, because we always believe, the President ordered, that the Malvinas must unite us. The Malvinas must have this idea, and it must guide us all, where there are no impositions, where each sector, each organization, each body can express what they want to honor the fallen, the relatives, to link the Malvinas not only with the past and the present, but also with the future.
no solo con el pasado, con el presente, sino también con el futuro.
The Malvinas 40 Years Agenda program will be carried out throughout the country and abroad.
When we talk about sovereignty, we always end up talking about the Malvinas because our territorial sovereignty is ruptured, broken, tarnished. May no one ever rob us of our love for the Malvinas. May no one ever take away the right we have over that land.
Therefore, the national government reaffirms once again that it will continue to voice its legitimate claims before the international community.
Carolina Silvestre, Telesur, Buenos Aires.
Thank you, Carolina, for your report, and we'll be right back after this very short break, so don't go away. Welcome back to From the South. United States President Joe Biden called out on former head of state Donald Trump as the singular responsible in provoking the mayhem on January 6 last year, when the outgoing Republican leader's supporters stormed the Congress. Biden's decision to use his speech on the anniversary of blame Trump and the Republican allies for the role in the unprecedented attack on the U.S. Capitol building will mark a sharp escalation in his approach to Trump and the riot. From inside the Capitol Statuary Hall, where exactly a year ago a mob rampaged through to try and stop certification of Biden's election win, the Democratic president will deliver a speech laying out the significance of what happened. Through the first year of Biden's presidency, Trump has refused to acknowledge his defeat in the 2020 presidential election and continues to spread conspiracy theories to his millions of followers about being the true winner.
And here's the truth. The former President of the United States of America has created and spread a web of lies about the 2020 election. He's done so because he values power over principle, because he sees his own interest as more important than his country's interest, than America's interest. This wasn't a group of tourists. This was an armed insurrection. They weren't looking to uphold the will of the people. They were looking to deny the will of the people. They were looking to uphold, they weren't looking to uphold a free and fair election. They were looking to overturn one. They were looking to save the cause of America. They were looking to subvert the Constitution.
Now we address other topics. The Bolivian Ministry of Health reported a new record in the demand for vaccination, as well as a fall in COVID-19 mortality rates. Our correspondent, Freddy Morales, has the story.
With a health emergency declared a week ago, institutions are compliant with the restrictions. Anyone who is not vaccinated will present a PCR test as required. And there is another possibility. If a colleague does not present an ID card and is not able to take the test, he or she will only be able to participate in a section virtually. I recommend that my students, teachers, and administrative staff get vaccinated, because if you are going to take the PCR test, it costs you at least 400 pesos, and every time you use it, you have to do it again. I recommend vaccination. With the increase of new infections due to the fourth wave, there is also a growing anti-vaccination campaign for religious reasons, misinformation, or based on myths. The government is responding with verified data. Remember what happened in the first wave? There was the collapse of cemeteries, crematoriums were not able to keep up with the demand. The morgues of our hospital were full. There were reports that the National Health Fund had established cold chambers to store the corpses. We are not experiencing that situation right now, despite having a huge increase in cases, 34,000 cases in 1 week, but despite this, the mortality rate is still below 1%, 0.8% to be exact. Despite anti-vaccine campaigns, a record immunization rate was recorded on Monday with more than 140,000 doses administered in a single day. Severe cases occurred in people who have not received the vaccine. On average, 8 out of every 10 patients hospitalized in ICU units or who have died are unvaccinated people. And although this is a painful reality, we must convey as such to our population in a country where the vaccine is available. Among the measures in place due to the health emergency are the requirement of a vaccination card for all official procedures and entry to closed space, price controls for medicines to treat COVID, a ban of the suspension of health service, and prohibition of excessive charge at private clinics when admitting patients to intensive care units.
Freddy Morales, Telesur, Bolivia.
Thank you, Freddy, for your report, and now we continue. Italy's government said Wednesday that it will make vaccination against COVID-19 compulsory from February 15th for everyone of the age of 50 in a bid to battle surge in infections. Prime Minister Mario Draghi said during a cabinet meeting that the government's aim was to slow down the curve of contagion and encourage Italians who have not yet been vaccinated to do so. The new decree obliges people over 50 who do not work to get vaccinated, and those who do work to obtain a vaccine pass, which effectively covers all over 50s. Out of Italy's 59 million people, 28 million are over the age of 50, according to the National Statistics Agency. Late last month, the government said that from January 10th, a vaccination pass will be required to use public transport and access hotels, restaurant terraces, and gyms.
And I think we should be grateful that the National Health Service can vaccinate us for free, not only for ourselves, but also for the rest of the population. Even though it wasn't mandatory, we vaccinated ourselves. If it is the only solution, let's get vaccinated, even if it is mandatory.
I think that mandatory vaccination should be extended to everyone, or at least to all adults, so I see it positively.
While the health crisis caused by COVID-19 worsens at the international level due to the advance of the Omicron variant, China is not lowering its guard, and residents of the city of Xi'an have been under a strict quarantine for 2 weeks. Authorities have also ordered a lockdown in the city of Youzhou, with a population of more than 1 million. Our correspondent Iramzi Barasa brings us more details.
The 13 million inhabitants of the city of Xi'an in northwest China have been under a strict lockdown for almost 2 weeks due to a COVID outbreak that has already surpassed 1,700 cases since December 9th. China's central government demanded that local officials in Xi'an, the capital of Jiangxi province, strictly and properly implemented measures to contain the outbreak, while there are signs that rate of infection is slowing as cases drop to their lowest number in a week.
The spread of COVID-19 in China is under control, and new cases have fallen in recent days. All the strict measures applied in the city with a population of 13 million people have made it possible to contain the rapid spread of the virus registered at the beginning of the outbreak.
The strict quarantine and COVID-19 control measures in Xi'an have put tremendous pressure on the supply of basic food to city's 13 million residents, with thousands of volunteers deployed to deliver food and medicine to households. The authorities, meanwhile, noted that there are sufficient supplies and that they have mobilized resources from other regions to guarantee stocks. Authorities also declared a lockdown on the entire city of Yushu, with a population of 1 million and located in the center of the country. and in several districts of the port city of Ningbo, in the eastern province of Zhejiang, where 9 million people live. Although the case numbers in both cities are very small compared to outbreaks elsewhere in the world, the measures applied are almost identical to those applied in Xi'an and form part of China's zero-tolerance approach to COVID-19, which authorities stress has prevented thousands of deaths and millions of infections. So far, all active outbreaks in China are cases of the Delta variant. There are still no reports of local transmission of Omicron in the country, only imported cases, and the authorities insist on reinforcing measures to prevent this new highly transmissible variant from spreading with China's borders.
Thank you, Ramsey, for this report, and we have more stories coming up after this final short break, so stay with us. Welcome back. Russian troops have arrived in Kazakhstan as part of a peacekeeping mission by Collective Security Treaty Organization in response to the Central Asian nation's resident request of aid in the face of possible terrorist attacks concealed into the recent protests because of a rise in fuel prices. Kazakhstan President Kassym-Jomart Tokayev asked for the intervention from the Collective Security Treaty Organization, an alliance made up of Russia, Armenia, Belarus, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, and Tajikistan, later on Wednesday. The demonstrators escalated into attacks on public buildings and infrastructure, including military installations and an airport, suggesting a high level of coordination and training of the groups committing these acts. According to analysis, it was determined that terrorist groups with foreign training have launched attacks. Now we remain on topic. In Kazakhstan, at least 13 security agents were killed and 353 wounded after clashes with the city of Almaty. The city's military quartermaster's office informed that 2 of the troops were beheaded. On Thursday morning, several armored vehicles and dozens of troops entered the main square of Almaty to restore the order. The Russian agency TASS reported that so far more than 1,000 people were injured in the unrest in several regions of the country, 400 of whom were hospitalized, according to the Kazakh Health Ministry. On the other hand, according to news outlet Russia Today, in the city of Atkau in western Kazakhstan, protesters ended their peaceful mobilization. The demonstrators stepped down after agreeing that the authorities had met their demands. And the United Nations call on both political leaders and opponents in Kazakhstan to exercise restraint amid rising tensions and protests in the country. Spokesperson Stefan Dujarric said that the UN was monitoring the situation closely. Despite the resignation of the government and the announcement of state regulation of fuel and food prices, a moratorium on raising utility rates as well as rent subsidies for the most vulnerable, the violent protests have escalated.
Following with concern and monitoring the situation in Kazakhstan. I think it's very important for all involved in these current events to exercise restraint, refrain from violence, and promote dialogue in addressing all of the pertinent issues.
The Israeli regime's army launched artillery strikes against Syrian positions in the province of Al-Quneitra in southern Syria. The attack was carried out in Wednesday night when Israeli tanks opened fire in Syrian positions in the village of Al-Hurriya in the Syrian province of Al-Quneitra. According to local media reports, the explosions coincided with the overflight of Israeli helicopters, reconnaissance planes and drones in the area. The Lebanese channel Al Mayadin reported a fire in the village after the attack. Last December 28th, the Israeli enemy attacked with missiles the container yard of the commercial port of Latakia, causing important material losses. And we have come to the end of this news brief. But remember, you can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. And also, if you feel so inclined, please join us on social media for all the latest news. We are on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Telegram. For Telesur English, I'm Gladys Quesada. Thank you for watching.